Hey guys, I think hopefully some people have joined me. Many more, many more. Thanks for coming. I'll wait a couple more minutes for some other people to join. It's my first time going live actually, so a little bit of a technical learning difficulty there, but hopefully we'll just wait for a few more people to join here, and we will get started with the stream here. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing well? And just let me know if there's any charts you want to look at or anything like that. I can do some requests for sure. I'm sure there may not be too many people on tonight. It's a little late my time for a lot of Europeans in the group I found. So uh, it's probably early morning, like middle of the night for them. And then how about my volume? Is the volume good? Can you guys hear me all right? Just hit one. You can hear me good. And we'll just get started here, and maybe people can just watch it at a later date. So we got FTM dot. Okay, take a look at this. So why don't we start? Start. Okay, let's give it here. I wanted to go over Luna since that was in my last video that I made. That was um, not live streamed, but recorded. So let's take a look at dot here. Uh, just kind of go with the flow. Not too low, bro. Portfolio cut in half. Crypto looking at what people say market crash. Also, cash is crashing. Yeah, everything looks pretty uncertain here. So, the markets hate uncertainty, right? But, if you're diverse, I know you're going to take a little bit of a hit here and there, but, you know, these are the times where you want to be diverse. You want to have a little bit of cash. You want to have some of your long-term plays, whether, obviously for me that's a lot of Bitcoin. And I got Ethereum, and then I have a couple of the top players like Avalanche, Luna. Um, I have a little bit of Polkadot as well, actually, and Matic. Really big on Matic, and yeah, I mean, if we're looking at DOT here, as I said in my last video, I don't know if you guys watched it, but I did say that I was looking for Bitcoin, and I believe at that point we are around this 34, kind of 35 grand range. I was expecting a move up to this like 40,000, give or take a couple of grand range, even whether you're bearish or bullish. At this point, we went down in a straight line. I told everybody I wouldn't be taking shorts down here. And that played out to be pretty true. We were in one of these candles right here, I believe in one, and we were sitting around 35, 34. And I was anticipating, and I'm still anticipating, kind of a move like between this range here, that first red line on the chart, and right around this area, at minimum, like kind of looking at this kind of range, this 39,908 to 42K range. Whether you're bullish or bearish, could we come a little shy of that? Sure, but as of right now, like if we're zooming in, um, market cipher is still pointed north. The one thing I don't like is off of this recovery, we're kind of seeing declining volatility on the BBWP. It's just a volatility indicator. It works really well with market cipher. We do have the red negative volume coming up, which is usually, a good sign when you're looking for a little bit of upside movement. So right now, I would still be anticipating this move to 39 to 42 kind of range, whether you're bullish or bearish. If we get over this range right here, like this 43 kind of 44 level, then we could be set for a true relief rally, which is what a lot of people are looking for in the sense of a potential lower high being put in or bear market rally. Now, I'm not saying we're in a bear market. Obviously, this can be construed as bearish. Of course, we are down pretty much, you know, at the worst point from high to low, 51%, and now we're sitting at about a 44% correction. Now, if you're a long-term investor, I did mention in my channel multiple times, if I was dollar cost averaging into this market right now, it would primarily be into Bitcoin and Ethereum, just because of the volatility. So let's say you're dollar cost averaging here and you're wrong and the market does continue down and we're not seeing a reversal here, like a mid to long term reversal. Volatility to the downside, in all honesty, for me, this is kind of what I'm looking for. I know it's far way down, but we have to kind of be realistic here, right? So I mean, this, to be honest, for me, is a worst case scenario. Somewhere around this 18, possibly up to 24 grand range is where I would be looking for if we went into an official kind of bear market. So with Bitcoin, you know, you're going to take a 50% hit thereabouts, which isn't great by any means. And I mean, don't ever want to sustain a drop like that. But, there's other things we can do. We can take a small leverage position just to hedge our bets. We can also um, manage our portfolio in a way that right now, for example, I have 50%, 30% exposure to crypto. So if crypto, let's just say on average, drops by 50% in my total portfolio, that will only really be 15% hit on my total portfolio from gold, cash, and crypto. I can sustain a 15% hit, right? That I can sleep. It would be a 50% hit on my crypto, but 15% on my overall portfolio. That's really what matters to me. So, again, I'm not saying that we're going into a bear market, nor do I think that that is the case right now. Right now, what I would be looking for is this move to 40 to 42. Now, the reason I went to Bitcoin, so now we can take a look at DOT. So if I'm looking at DOT, I'm expecting Bitcoin to kind of make a move to this, 40, 42, $42,000 range. Would it be out of the world to say that, DOT could come and visit the bottom of this range here, like this 23, let's call it, to $25 range? I think it's reasonable to assume that we can come somewhere here, right? Um, you know, and we'll have to see because we really want to play. So what I do in bearish times, um, especially the bearish times, I trade all my altcoins versus Bitcoin. I use Bitcoin as an oscillator, right? When everything's going up and the trend is up and everything's good, you know, don't really need to use Bitcoin as much of an oscillator if the macro trend is up. Right now, if we look at this, we can say for sure that we're in a weekly downtrend, right? So you want to be using Bitcoin as your oscillator. So if we're saying here, okay, it's very likely for us to at least get to this 40 to 42K range, right? And typically what we see in, a bear market rally, like if we were going to create a lower high, we would probably see a visit somewhere to this 0.618 to zero point 0.5 level to confirm our lower high, right? But the main area first we have to get over is this 42K range. So, if Bitcoin's going to start making its way up to this like 47, 52K range, this will open up a lot of good swing trade opportunities for some of these altcoins. And you're playing them with the anticipation that we are potentially going to put in a lower high. And the reason I say that, so the money flow on Bitcoin, so this green wave here, and a lot of people may not be familiar with market cipher. It's one of my favorite indicators, or by far is for swing trading. I do use other indicators for macro investing, but for swing trading and catching like nice bottoms, selling tops, I really like market cipher. Now, what do we notice? What is the difference between back here, right, and where we are right now? So when we were getting into this bull market, right, we were seeing we saw an upthrust of the green money flow, which is telling us new buyers stepping into the market. Then we kind of had like this consolidation, and that is possible. We could be seeing that if this stays and uses this zero line. So we have a zero line here on market cipher, and typically when the money flow goes below it, it's negative. When it goes above it, it's in the positive. So if we start to see some sort of consolidation here above the zero line and then start to uptick back up on a weekly time frame, that'll be showing that there's net new buyers in the market. Right now, we're not really seeing a lot of buyers. Obviously, that's why prices go down, right? So I was looking at this on the weekly. I was looking at this ascending triangle. I was hoping that it would be a busted symmetric triangle. I think I can probably get rid of this for now. This was the bullish case. I did take a short hedge position from about the 65K range down to this 45K level, anticipating for us to hold this as some support. It fell through. So I offset a lot of my long-term holding positions here once we broke 61K, and since then we've kind of found support here at this previous low. So with that being said, right, so we know we're getting a bounce here. We know that there is a potential for some swing trade opportunities. Um, so with DOT, I would say that you have a decent risk to reward ratio. Like if I was going to take a trade on DOT, I would zoom in first of all. We did kind of get this first initial uh, pump here, right? So you could be looking at some entries around this level right here, if we get the retest around this 1897 level. But you have a nice area of invalidation. So you could say our invalidation could be below this previous low, right? This is if you're looking at it from a swing trade perspective, right? So if you're looking at it from a swing trade perspective and you want to keep your stops tight and your risk tight, this is what I'd be. Yeah, you could come down here and test if you really wanted to be risky. Put down to here just below this wick. But I would say if we're going to come back down and break below this low we put in here, we're probably going to be coming down and sweeping the lows again, right? So that's what I'm looking at on DOT. So if you were to take that, right, we look at it from uh, so look at that long position, and let's just say theoretically you got in here, right? So potential 20% to the upside with a stop just below the wick here. You're looking at a nice 2.5 return risk to reward ratio, right? So it's not bad. Like if you are going to take it and you are suspecting that this is going to be a, whether it's a long-term low or short-term low being put in, you could take theoretically a low risk trade here when, really you're only risking about 8.76%, right? So if we look at Phantom, I also wanted to look at Luna because I did go over it in my last video, and we saw a real big change in behavior for Luna. Phantom, I would say, probably the same thing. Like if you do want to trade this to the upside, just have a nice area of invalidation. You take out the lows, right? And then, yeah, I mean, you're kind of want to wait for a um, little bit of a cool off here, right? So, but you would want it to probably, yeah, I don't really like Phantom as much. I know it's been a stronger player, but we've just recently seen a change of trend, right? And I'm always a little bit eerie when I see a change of trend, right? So you've been putting in higher highs and higher lows here, and then you put in a slightly higher high, and then you came down and you broke your daily structure, right? So you made your first lower low. So could you take a trade up to here? Yeah, but I still like DOT a little bit better. I think it's a little bit ahead in its corrective cycle, right? So what I would say is, yeah, DOT's probably better for, uh, you know, Mr. I sorry, I'm gonna butcher your name, Mr. Ayan Siddiqui, right? So yeah, I would say DOT is probably your better bet here. Um, you know, FTM could still technically be somewhere, um, like over here, and still have a heinous drop. Like if we look at Luna, which is the most similar structure actually to what FTM is just doing. Obviously, the charts look different, but what did we see? So I went over this in my previous video. We're sitting around 70 bucks, maybe $68, and we put in this first lower high in this entire trend, right? So if you look from summertime, so this is a summer chart. So what do you see here? All of this trend, we're putting in higher highs and higher lows, right? All the way up until here. We got another lower, higher low, but then we put in our first lower high, this entire trend right here. And I was warning people, like when you see this type of behavior, when you see this kind of lower high action, usually you're going to see some sort of, drop off. Really, that's exactly what happened. I believe this is kind of the area where I was speaking about, and it did drop about, 37%. So looking at FTM, we've technically just broke that structure, right? That nice uptrend structure has just been broken on a daily structure. So I would I'm not a huge fan of FTM, but if you are looking for something, I think DOT has a reasonable risk to reward here. If your bias is that we will see a little bit of higher prices at, you know, going over the next couple of weeks, maybe a week or two here. So DOT is pretty good. And yeah, with Luna, I mean, some of these we're seeing a lot of these head and shoulder type patterns here. And, you know, sometimes when they're just so obvious that everybody is seeing them, and this one actually played out pretty well if you play the horizontal. But, if we're, sorry, the diagonal. But if you're playing horizontal, I mean, this is a pretty heinous drop. Like, I mean, this thing can go down, potentially to this kind of like 27, $28 range, right? And technically, this is a bearish retest. So I wouldn't really feel comfortable even buying Luna here. Like, to be honest, guys, for the most part, what I'm doing, I'm holding Bitcoin, Ethereum. I have some AVAX that I got at very, you know, reasonable levels. I have a little bit of DOT that I got uh, probably in sometime in early 2021. I have a little bit of Matic that I got pretty early on, and I'm just kind of sitting on that with the majority of my crypto being in Bitcoin. And the reason I like to be in Bitcoin because I am, even though I swing trade, I'm also a long-term holder. Um, I like to get in at desirable areas, and I like to hold DCA at those points. But for me, the reason I like to hold Bitcoin if we're on a 50-50 cusp. Because if I'm wrong, I'm not going to have as large of a hit, right? Bitcoin, you guys know. Oh, no problem. Yeah, anytime. If anybody else has any quick uh, altcoins they like me to go over, I can look at a couple more. But what I really urge, even like my friends, they ask me all the time, like, should I buy this alt? Even right now in this downtrend, and I say, listen, back here in the summer, it was very obvious. Okay, if we go to the 3-day chart, market cipher had bullish divergence all over. Okay, prices were heading down, momentum indicator, the waves here were heading up, right? That's bullish divergence, almost from where we started here to all the way over here at this bottom. We had bullish divergence the entire way. we are not seeing any bullish divergence here. It's just been down, down. Now, does that mean that we cannot put in a bottom here? It doesn't mean that. But what we do want to see is, in my opinion, what I like to see at bottoms, I do like to see bullish divergence. So if we're looking at the daily, there's no bullish divergence. And I know people use RSIs and stuff and say it's in really oversold levels. The thing is, prices can stay in oversold levels for a very long time, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking for on shorter time frames. I'm looking for some bullish divergence to really confirm to me that this is like a mid or long term bottom, right? So until I see that, I'm not really trying to take a whole lot of risk with altcoins at the moment. I'm really just going to use Bitcoin as my oscillator. Bitcoin is a perfect oscillator in times of uncertainty in this market, right? So it's a very strong oscillator, and maybe I'll go over that a little bit in the future. I don't want to leave this video too long. People will just get bored, right? So, but one thing I do want to show you guys is this, right? And I did post this. So if we just take away all the drawings, right? These blue waves right here is momentum, right? So our last up thrust here, you can see that the momentum was pretty lackluster in comparison. This was a much more sustainable um, momentum drive to the upside. This one was pretty lackluster and already started seeing our blue wave break back below the zero line, indicating that, you know, there's no buyers, as well as volume kind of reducing, kind of subsiding here, uh, showing less net buyers. So, a lot of people, I know, I look like a dinosaur or whatever talking about gold, but this is what gold was created for. Times of uncertainty. This is what people buy gold for, right? And the thing is, if we look at those blue waves, we're already on the downside, right? Yes, we're seeing money flow kind of consolidate, but we're not really seeing huge drives of momentum waves to the downside or the upside. And this is telling me that we're in a consolidation. Now, when we're after a big up and we consolidate, I'm going to assume that that is a bullish consolidation until I'm proven wrong, right? So I'm assuming right now, since we're coming off of an uptrend and we're kind of in a little bit of, you know, uh, a cup and handle, or even this type of symmetrical bull flag type pattern, right? I've seen it drawn a few different ways from a few different people. I like to look at this as a huge cup and handle. This is like, going back to 2011. And if this does break out and it confirms, right? So it's not a pattern until it's confirmed. And when it's confirmed, be a close over 1965. This thing has targets all the way up to like 25, 2800. Let's just say 70% of the targeted range gets filled. So we'll say 25 to 2800. So this is pretty good from a risk to reward perspective for me right now, gold. And there's pretty clear invalidation, right? We have this diagonal trend line that's supporting price, and we also have this nice horizontal trend. For long term, you could move this down quite a bit more, but if you're just playing this as a swing trade or just in a time where, you know, other risk on assets are kind of taking a hit, you can also you can also, have this as your point of invalidation, 1746. So yeah, you can use a gold ETF will follow. Yes. So I don't know which market you trade on. So for me, I'm Canadian, so I choose this ETF. It's called MNT is the ticker, Mint, and that basically tracks gold dollar for dollar. You can also in crypto, like if you're sitting on a lot of cash, you can buy Pax Gold too, right? So I hold quite a bit of Pax Gold. I do like Pax Gold. Let's see, I think it's chartable. Binance. Probably, yeah, I mean, it's been volume's probably not great, but it's trading at 1807. I've seen it keep its peg pretty consistently for a long period of time now, Pax Gold, and you can store it in your own hardware wallet, which I do like. So you can just put this, yeah, and that's a really good point, Doc P. So miners. So, you know, I'm not a huge uh like pizza trader like falling like wedge and rising wedge, but they seem to work out pretty well for crypto and they've worked pretty good for gold and miners. So this is Barrack Gold, right? This is actually the Canadian pricing. So, but if you charted it on, because I try to pay for everything on the TSX, which is the Toronto Stock Exchange, so I don't have to pay FX fees because I'm a cheap guy. But here, what do you have, right? Like if we look at Bitcoin trending down, right? Look at what these gold miners and what gold uh, is doing now. We're starting to see a reverse. We're starting to see, okay, first higher high, first higher low, second higher high, potentially a second higher low. So what can we do here? Well, it's a pretty nice area of opportunity where literally you can take a trade anywhere really under this region, I would say, this 2560, and you can put a stop right here, 9.41%. Now, obviously, the top of this wedge is going to be rather optimistic, but it's doable. Like these miners move quick. As Doc P mentioned, miners will explode, do explode. The top of this wedge is about an 20% trade. So you're talking about a 10 to 1 risk to reward ratio on this. Obviously, you're going to take profits along the way back into cash, like obvious areas resistance. So here, right here would be probably like your first good area just to take a little bit. Like you can just take 10% just to give yourself a little bit back to your cash reserves, depending on how long you are on gold and gold mining stocks. But for me, this looks like such better opportunity right now than when I'm looking at any crypto chart. In all honesty, I don't want to sound like a bear because I'm a crypto perma bull. That's why I hold long-term bags. It's very rare for me to hold uh, long-term bags unless I'm very bullish. I don't hold long-term bags of. I only play when the momentum is headed up. I hold some equities like dividend yielding equities long term, but I'm very much swing trader over 6 month, 3 month, whenever I start taking my profits. But here we're seeing a change of behavior. We're going from higher highs, higher lows to our first lower low, right? Gold, what are we seeing, right? We're not really seeing a downtrend. We're seeing a consolidation. What are we seeing in the gold miners? We're seeing now a higher high, higher low structure. I would much rather go to where I'm seeing strength in market. I'd rather go and find markets that are putting in higher highs and higher lows rather than, and I'm not a big leverage trader. I do take leverage to hedge positions, but I'm not a scalper. I don't have time to sit at my screen all day, surprisingly, even though I'm in IT. I got a kid, got a wife that needs attention, right? So you got to give them that attention, right? So for me, just trade with the trend. When you are a spot buyer, when you're a spot purchaser, you're not a leverage trader shorting. And I just go to where I see strength. And right now, um, you know, I got to agree with Doc P. I think miners will explode, right? And MNT and Pax Gold, any more? Yes, MNT and Pax Gold. So Pax Gold you can buy in the crypto world. You can buy it on Coin. You can buy it on any Ethereum decentralized exchange, and you can buy it on Binance, probably FTX as well. And for Mint, Mint is a Canadian uh, miner, or sorry, a gold representation. So right, if this one. So it basically follows gold's price to a T. It's just the share price is lower, right? So here, as you can see, gold and so if we look at here just to see what the difference is, if we go from this low here to this high, this was about 105% returns, right? So if we go from the low here, so I would say it was roughly this time. So actually, it was actually more returns with Mint, right? So so yeah, Mint I like. It's a very reputable business. I don't really like. I have been watching lithium actually very closely. Uranium I was buying um, probably after capitulation 2020, but I just ended up moving all my funds into crypto. Like I'm telling you guys, after March 2020 and we got that reversal after that capitulation, I literally sold like pretty much everything I had and put it into crypto. I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty much like 85, 90% crypto in, I would say about May, midway through May, I was convinced that we were heading higher, and pretty much saw the capitulation of Bitcoin. So, but I was looking at uranium back then as well. It was starting to show a lot of bottoming signals around that capitulation time, and it did do very well. And and I probably would have been the equivalent of buying, some of these cryptos, right? So if you bought uranium after that capitulation, if you bought anything after the capitulation, you're pretty much chilling, right? I mean, for the most part. I mean, a lot of people didn't buy assets. A lot of people were scared. They held cash, and it got printed to oblivion, and they lost, 10, 20% over a year period just from buying power, right? Depreciating buying power. And I see it all the time now. Like I go out for food, like pho, uh, Vietnamese food. So I love Vietnamese food. The place I used to go to, me and my wife could go for like about $18. And, now it's probably like 25, $30. Is it still cheap relative to other foods? Yes, but still um, a lot higher, right? So yeah, before I end the session, I'll take a look at BNB and LTC. Why don't we do that? LTC, I have a nice chart and a not so nice chart, anyway, because LTC is one of those things that you gotta love and you gotta hate. You know what I mean? And I took a lot of flack on LTC, and I was buying LTC at $20 before they're having it, before the halving, right? But since that $20 thereabout range, um, you know, it's been very lackluster. Like it wasn't able to in a higher high, right? It wasn't able to put in a higher high from 2017, right? It really wasn't. I really like HNT actually. I'm waiting for my miner right now. I've been waiting for like 5, 6 months. It's I've been very patient for that thing. I think we're gonna go into a full blown bear before I get my miner, but we'll see. I've ordered the Bobcat, so um, let's see how that one goes. But yeah, with LTC, I mean, look, if you're measuring this against dollars, I mean, you've done very well, right? You've done well. Even relative to a lot of stocks, you've done extremely well. But when you measure it against Bitcoin, and sorry, all my lines here, guys, I'm a horizontal trader, so I focus on price action, primarily horizontals. But if we look at Litecoin, it blows my mind sometimes people that talk about Litecoin and they kept telling me, yo, this is going to be where it goes crazy, right? And I'm still waiting. If this thing goes crazy off of here and just starts appreciating versus Bitcoin like nuts, oh, I'll get in. Don't worry. But like this is like, I don't know, man. It's like this is the third test, right? And it's lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. So is it more likely to break down or up? I'm going to say probably down, right? Because we don't keep coming and retesting the same level to the upside, but we keep coming and retesting the same level to the downside, right? So that tells me that, you're better off just holding Bitcoin, right? And then just play these momentum swings, right? Look right here. Let's say you're bullish like, right? Okay, where do you look for entry? You know, I already got my horizontals there, but right, you get it above here and you still have the upside, right? And you could start taking profits at this first horizontal, which is the first major resistance. And then once you start getting up to here, like, I mean, anywhere in this range here, you want to switch from Litecoin to Bitcoin, right? And yeah, I agree. It does need a use case, right? Like, I mean, I think it's great. Like, you know how many times I've like sent coin to places or paid, I just bought a bunch of gift cards, Litecoin, because transaction fees are so good and they only take Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. But Bitcoin's transaction fees really aren't that bad anymore, right? Like, I mean, obviously they're not great if you're sending small amounts, but I think I paid like $5 or $7 last time I sent, right? Or sent some. So yeah, Litecoin, I mean, I wouldn't be looking for like a long-term position in Litecoin, right? BNB on the other hand, I gotta say it's still one of the strongest coins. It doesn't have a lower low on the weekly time frame yet, right? So this is still showing a lot of strength. I mean, for me, this is where I start to get worried. Like, I mean, if you look at it, right, we're low on the. Let's go on the week. Compare every chart. We're low, right? Big weekly, we're low. Luna, might not on the week. Let's take a look. Yeah, not on the week. So Luna is still one of these coins that's still holding up relatively well, but the daily has just broken down, right? So if we look at BNB on the daily right here, since we put in this low, we're still technically trending up, right? So we made a high here. So the only thing is that we haven't been able to reclaim this high, but in general, we made a higher low here in comparison with this consolidation range. We made another, we made a lower high, but in this current trend, it's a higher high on the short term, a higher low, higher high, potentially a higher low or double bottom. We'll have to see. I mean, if Bitcoin goes up here, I would say that BNB could have a nice solid move. And if we look at from, so I keep using this thing. So if we look at that from a long perspective, I mean, it's not as desirable because you got to be a little bit tight. I mean, you could enter here and you have about a 13% validation and, you know, first potential. So it's under a 1-to-1 risk to reward ratio, which I usually like to go 2-to-1 on my RR. So I mean, you're really risking what you're planning to get here in a worst case scenario. Like if Bitcoin only goes to like, the low 40s, I wouldn't really anticipate too much higher than 440 on BNB. But if Bitcoin does manage to gather some more steam, yeah, I mean, you could go to this kind of 500, 515 range. I think it's possible. And potentially seeing how Bitcoin plays out, possibly a lower high here relative to what Bitcoin is doing. Again, if you're trading altcoins, guys, and I'll leave it with this because I don't want to keep this video too long. Um, I don't know how long people usually stream. Can't imagine too many people watching it if I'm talking 2 hours. But what I will leave you is use Bitcoin as your oscillator. Okay, when it's trending up like this, yeah, I mean most altcoins were doing nothing here, but when it's consolidating on the highs above its 21-week moving average, you can go ham, trade whatever altcoins, buy whatever you want. Things are gonna keep going up, right? But once we start getting into these downtrends, as soon as we start getting into these downtrends here, sorry about my audio, guys. Yeah, I gotta get it. I used to have a Blue Yeti microphone. My daughter, she's only 2.5, she decided to grab it and smash it on the ground. So that was like a $200 microphone, boom, gone. I used to use it for gaming, stuff like that. But I'll leave you with this piece, and that is just really use Bitcoin as your oscillator in these times of uncertainty. If it's trending up, you can take on swing trades with altcoins. If you're continuing to go down, like you're getting these red weekly candles, and you can find the diamond in the rough, but realistically, um, they're going to be far and few between. I know here we still had a lot of optimism because people were thinking, oh, it's not going to go much lower. It's going to put in a higher low right here. And, I was kind of hoping the same thing, which is why I didn't close my short right around here. I thought it would cut a little bit lower. So I'm with, I was bearish when we broke 61K on the daily structure, closed out a lot of my positions, took a short hedge. And then when we got here, I knew a lot of people were saying, oh, we're just going to bounce off of these previous highs here, previous high here from August. But then what we did is we came down, and this was kind of my area to take a little bit more risk was around here. And then I laddered in a little bit more around here, like around this 1,100 range. And then when we took out this, I mean, I got to close my trade. Otherwise, I'm going to be going against my rules, even though I think that we're going to come back up. Even though that I think that I could have gotten out at a break even, there's always that possibility that it just keeps going. So you have to stick to your rules, right? But here, I think there was still a lot of optimism in these 2 3 weeks here, split in, and you could still trade altcoins very well. It wasn't until these last 2 weeks that we got here that altcoins got really, really nasty, right? This was the main area where we just saw some altcoins floors just, give out, right? So watch Bitcoin. Right now, I would say probability wise, um, we're looking at slightly higher, 40 to 42, possibly 45K. So you will have some opportunities there for some alts. But again, guys, don't sleep on gold. Don't sleep on the gold miners, specifically there. You can take a nice little risk to reward ratio here, a nice little 3 to 1, 8 to 1. So keep that one in mind. And with that being said, guys, I'm going to call it a night. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Hopefully, people will enjoy the stream when they watch it later. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Cheers.